You know, I've read some crazy conspiracy theories in my day. It's fun to read them because sometimes it's fun to imagine the world is more magical than it really is, but often the world is more routine. Hence the curse. May you live in interesting times. Because most people prefer to live in boring times. I know, boring is boring, but routine can be more peaceful. You have more opportunities for happiness, success. You strive, your passions, you accomplish, you explore, you live with your loved ones. Interesting times, historically, would be, well, kind of chaotic. There's death, there's risk. And for many people, you don't want to live in that stressful environment. I sometimes look at the noble rabbit, and it must suck. That little critter's out there eating grass, stressed 24/7, just like at any moment, something's going to come and eat you. But I've read a lot of these conspiracy theories because they're fun. They're fun to read. Some are more stupid and absurd, flat earth conspiracies that there's an armed naval force guarding the ice wall or whatever nonsense some people believe. I'm not saying every flat earther believes that. Flat earthers got mad at me about that. But some are more based in reality to varying degrees. There's one where, there's conspiracies about the World Health Organization and stuff and the cabal and the plan and the global domination. And I'm like, I roll my eyes at some of that stuff. I say some of it because some of it, is much more simple. And what happens is you'll get someone who takes a tiny morsel of truth and then can stretch it out to an extreme degree. Which brings me to the latest crackpot conspiracy from everyone's favorite neolib Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow worries Trump will probably be president for life if he wins in 2024. Cue all of the Trump supporters laughing, clapping, and cheering, saying, I want to agree with that. Trump being president for life. First, let's break down what that really means. Donald Trump is, what is he, 78 years old? President for life for Trump. His life expectancy, average life expectancy, he's about there. So for life means maybe one more term. Maybe if he really is president beyond his second term, it'll only be a couple more years. So Rachel Maddow's president for life argument is actually quite hilarious because she's actually correct. Like, let's just be honest. With all due respect to Trump, the average life expectancy of an American male, redundant, is about 79. So if Trump becomes president, then sure, okay, I guess. President for life, meaning the rest of his average life expectancy. But the reality is she's claiming he'll probably be president to his 90s or something like this. There'll be no more elections. The government will fall. And this is why they must file these legal challenges to have Donald Trump removed from the ballot. And while all that's actually going on, it's quite funny. You've got this from the Washington Post, how secretaries of state could keep Trump off the ballot. You have Politico, this one from just the other day. New Hampshire Republicans feud over bid to knock Trump off ballot. You have from the Hill, Florida lawyer files challenge to disqualify Trump from 2024 race. And the coup de grace. My favorite article here is NBC News saying Trump supporters flood New Hampshire election office with calls after false claim about ballot access. Conservative talk show host Charlie Kirk claimed the state was trying to keep Donald Trump off the primary ballot in 2024. What? Apparently, the developmentally disabled individuals who write for NBC News did not read the news and didn't actually look into what anyone was talking about. I feel for them. Perhaps they are not qualified to do this job. But while all of these fringe psychotic individuals are desperately trying to keep Trump off the ballot, we can see their motivations clear as day. They say MSNBC host notes that in the current political movement, far-right politics is coinciding with far-right violence. It's a lie, mind you, but let's break it down. In response to a New York Times report Monday about Donald Trump's legal strategy, Rachel Maddow laid out for MSNBC viewers the stakes of the 2024 election as she sees them. Concerned by the news that Trump's plan is to win the 2024 presidential election and then use the levers of power to make his myriad legal problems go away, Maddow warned that if he wins, it means he's probably president for life. Maddow also connected all of that to the surge in right-wing violence against racial minorities. That's a lie, by the way. That's not really happening. And members of the LGBTQ over the last few years, and urged people not to act as if our politics exist in a vacuum somewhere outside the rest of our lives. Watch the whole clip above. Okay, sure. Well, depending on how long it is. 4 minutes.
This morning, heading into what we knew would be two big important court hearings on these Trump cases today in federal court in Georgia and federal court in D.C., reporter Alan Foyer wrote a scene-setting piece about those two court hearings today for the New York Times, for the morning paper this morning. sort of reminding us all where this may be heading. He said towards the end of his article this morning, quote, "The timetables for Mr. Trump's 4 trials have taken on outsized importance. That's not only because there are so many of them, but also because they're unfolding against Trump's crowded calendar as the candidate leading the field for the Republican Party's 2024 presidential nomination. As a further complication, Trump has made no secret in private conversations with his aides
we get
of
it.
his desire. Known that was probably what he was planning, probably what he was thinking. But per the New York Times, it does seem sort of significant that that's what he's now telling people. That's what he's telling people he's going to do. He will solve his jumble of legal problems by winning the election. And, you know, whatever you think about that, that's how he's thinking about that. And what does that say about the election for all of the rest of us, right? It means in his own mind and those of his campaign and his supporters, presumably, these are the stakes. And again, whatever you think about that as a legal strategy for Trump, that is how he is thinking about the election. And that is how he is going to be talking to his supporters and his aides and his campaign about the stakes of the election. The election means one of 2 things, if this is the way he's going to approach it. Either he loses the election and he goes to prison, or he wins the election, he doesn't go to prison, and is that for life? That he gets to be president? Will we keep having more elections or no? If every election is a new opportunity for him to go to prison, do you think he allows us to have new elections?
Oh, my.
I mean, if those are the stakes, if winning the election is his plan to stay out of prison.
Okay, just keep saying the same thing over and over again, lady. I get it. You have nothing else to say. Probably president for life because Trump doesn't want to go to prison. Absolutely amazing. And she's citing this report where they say Trump has made it no secret that he's like, if I don't win, I go to jail. Yeah, we all know that. So here's the real issue. You know what? I agree with her that Trump supporters do think these are the stakes. Either Trump wins or he goes to prison. I don't agree with her in her crackpot legal theory that Trump trying to avoid prison will just keep winning elections or prevent them from happening, because that's not possible. Unless, of course, there is a massive shift in confidence among the military and they decide to just do whatever Trump says and shut things down. Not possible. This is why, partly why, they're trying to shut down the election, right? So let me get this straight. Rachel Maddow and other crackpot neolibs and leftists terrified that Donald Trump will win the election, destroy these, shut down these false criminal charges, he'll become president for life. Their justification for trying to end the 2024 election cycle, to prevent there from being an election, is to stop Trump from preventing there being an election. Accuse your opponents that of what you are doing. Filing criminal charges against Trump, trying to remove his name from the ballot across the board, is cheating in the 2024 election. Now, it pains me to say Republicans will do nothing. I mean, it pains me to say that, you know, in the sense that we wish someone somewhere would do something. And some people are, but it's certainly not the Republican Party. We'll see if they do anything in 2024. There are some files being released on Joe Biden. There is an investigation going on, being launched by some Republicans, but for the most part, they do nothing. While Democrats across the board launch all of these criminal indictments against Donald Trump, his lawyers, and now there's even investigations of certain media personalities. What do the Republicans do? Nothing, because they're in on it for the most part, right? We can't get a single local DA or state AG or anybody to file any charges against any of these people. How wonderfully pathetic. After reading the section, Maddow continued, I know that learning that Trump has been saying that privately to staffers is not shocking, right? We've known that was probably what he was planning, probably what he was thinking. It does seem sort of significant. That's what he's telling people. She just keeps saying the same thing over and over again. What does it say about the election for the rest of us? In light of this, she says that either he loses or goes to prison or he wins. If Trump and his supporters see the stakes as losing and going to prison or winning and being president, and probably president for life, how should we expect he and the Republican Party, Republican officials in swing states are going to handle the conduct of that election that Trump may very well lose? So what's funny is she talks about the rise in violence from the right. I'll just address this very quickly. We have this from the Volokh conspiracy at reason.com. Mass shooters by race and Hispanic ethnicity not far from the population as a whole. I don't think there's a very strong argument for a racial component in mass shootings in any direction. You know, you get a lot of people on the right that try to say that, the black population is more responsible. The left says the white population is more responsible. Well, let's just break it down. We do see that as for the percentage of population, Asians are represented twice as much, disproportionately in the percentage of mass shooters, 6.6, but only being 3.6% of the population. Black people in this country, 17.4% of mass shooters, despite only being 12.3% of the population. Then you have Hispanic, lower, 8.3, despite being 12.5% of the population. Native American, 2.5 times higher. White non-Hispanic, 54.5% of mass shooters, but only 62.6% of the population. And then there's other and unspecified. So for this, I would say, if there's any consideration, it's that Asians are 2 times more likely based on their population size. But ultimately, I don't think these numbers are very significant. I think it's more cultural than anything. So when the left tries to come out and says that white people are causing all this violence against minority groups, it's like, well, at the very least, you can say white people are underrepresented. White non-Hispanics are underrepresented in the percentage of mass shooters as to the percentage of population. And then you can say that Asian and black individuals and Native Americans are overrepresented. But I got to be honest, it's not that much. I think any argument over a psychopathic individual, psychotic individual committing a mass shooting, and you're looking at their race for the reason, I think that's silly and stupid. And a lot of this can be explained by historical trends, socioeconomic figures, values. But also, I do think there are racial components not in the race of the individual, but in the ideology of the individual. That is to say that there are many people who are overtly racist of very different races. That being said, Rachel Maddow is trying to play that game. Yeah, I'm not going to play that game with her. These people are crackpots. And because of this, they believe that fearing Donald Trump will be president for life, they are justified in removing Donald Trump from the ballot. Let me say that again. I know I said it earlier, but I'll repeat myself in the style of Rachel Maddow. So they're basically saying to save the elections, we must stop there from being an election. Okay. Look, I get it. You can fight fire with fire. It's called a controlled burn. Farmers will burn a strip of their crops or whatever to stop the fire from spreading. Fine. But this is just a lie. This is Democrats knowing they're going to lose, and then Trump is going to probably fire some people. I say probably because I'm not even convinced Trump gets an AG who's going to actually indict anybody. It's funny. You look at what Trump did the first time around, and it's like, do they really think that Trump is going to go nuclear? That'll be president for life? Dude wouldn't even invoke the Insurrection Act or call in the National Guard to stop riots. Or I should say not the National Guard, but invoke the Insurrection Act. So it's the states that do the National Guard. Trump could have fired Fauci. He didn't. Trump brought on John Bolton. There's a lot of things to criticize Trump on. Now, I do think you are more likely to get firings and prosecutions with Trump than anyone else. Even DeSantis, maybe Vivek, but I'm not entirely convinced. I still think Trump, it's like, well, 51% maybe. So I'll take it. I think the real issue is they're concerned. If the chance is 51%, even 50.1%, that they go to prison, they will burn down this country to stop it. Oh, here's our good friend Jennifer Rubin. Here we go. Oh, no, don't worry. No one's trying to take Trump off the ballot, except all of these politicians, the Democrats, and all these fake corporate press journalists. The Washington Post. Rarely do legal scholars compel government officials to embark on an unprecedented and hugely consequential course of action. But that is precisely what William Baude and Michael Stokes Paulson, authors of the Law Review article regarding Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, and the intellectual powerhouse duo, Michael Luttig and Lawrence Tribe, have done. In a remarkably short time, they have driven home the implications of Section 3, that all officials with a role in the presidential election process must consider disqualifying former President Donald Trump from the ballot if he either engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the Constitution or gave aid and comfort to the enemies of that Constitution. Secretaries of State certainly have heard them loud and clear. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson appeared on MSNBC, emphasized her plan to consider the issue exclusively based on applicable law without partisan considerations, expressing concern that this issue could become weaponized in future elections. Benson also indicated that she would be conferring with Secretaries of State in Georgia, Nevada, and Pennsylvania, but she smartly recognized that whatever she and other secretaries decide, the issue will undoubtedly travel to the Supreme Court for a final determination. Likewise, New Hampshire Secretary of State David Scanlon said recently, when somebody makes a reasoned argument about what those provisions mean, I feel an obligation to at least listen to them. He added, a decision of that magnitude, that's a decision of deciding that somebody is not qualified to run a person is extraordinary, and it really has to be treated with that degree of importance. That attitude serves as a model for not only secretaries of state, but also all other officials, blah, 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 blah. We get it. Now, secretaries of state and other officials must grapple with how to make the determination. Does state law require they obtain a ruling from the state attorney general or other legal official? Do they conduct open hearings to provide transparency and educate voters? There are no easy answers because we have never witnessed the accused instigator of an attempted insurrection run for president. And although Trump is not yet the nominee, it would be reckless not to prepare for the strong likelihood the Republican primary voters vote to nominate their cult leader. And that, in turn, raises a critical point. Primary voters who might be contemptuous of the demands of democracy should at the very least understand that they risk nominating someone who might not be on the ballot in one or more states. They could gamble that the hyper-partisan Supreme Court will ride to Trump's rescue, hypocritically ignoring the plain text of the amendment. Do primary voters want to run that risk? A point that I brought up on IRL, discussing this with Eric Hunley. I said, will they use testimony in the Georgia case to justify removing Trump from the ballot? And Eric said they can't. Trump's not convicted. And I said, that doesn't matter. This lawsuit is a civil argument, not a criminal argument. And he says, but he's not convicted. The point is this. Trump does not need to be convicted for a Secretary of State to simply say, it is beyond a reasonable doubt, in my opinion, that Trump engaged in insurrection. Therefore, he's removed from the ballot. And then you can file your lawsuit to the state court. Good luck. They'll do this in October of next year. They'll say, just before the printing and release of early ballots, and they'll say, sue us. And they will. And it'll go to the Michigan court that will bang the gavel and say, we have no authority to make a determination on whether or not Trump did or did not engage in insurrection. That's for the Secretary of State to decide. Dismissed. Or better yet, they'll say, you are not the aggrieved and you have no standing. Donald Trump will be required to personally file in all of these states. And then they'll say, you are not the voter or the voting body. Therefore, you have no standing. They will simply make up a reason. Of course, it can maybe go to the Supreme Court. So by January, the Supreme Court will be like, Trump's name should be on the ballot. Oh, the election's over? Well, maybe next time. So here's what I see. As it happens, as we begin to see the attempts to remove Trump's name from the ballot, and many people said it would never happen. Oh, here we are. I'm so annoyed. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so annoyed. And ladies, we don't want to exclude the ladies here. From everybody who keeps telling me over and over and over again, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And then it keeps happening. For the Lord have mercy. Stop saying it's not going to happen. They won't indict Trump. Then they do. They're not going to go after anyone else. It's just Trump. Then they go after his staff. Well, but that's where it stops. They're not going to go after his lawyers. Then they go after his lawyers. It's not going to result in, yes, it will. It does. It's happening. It's remarkable how many people said they would never indict him. It's remarkable how many people said street violence would not escalate to murders. We now have the Republican council people who were murdered. We have a GOP guy murdered in his own home. Maybe it was a domestic dispute. We don't know. We had Aaron Danielson. We have the Summer of Love. The one city, I can't remember. I saw this. I glimpsed it. So one city paid out something like $5 million to the extremists over their riots because the police acted too harshly. The game is rigged. And it's funny because there's no off-ramp. All of it keeps happening. They're not going to remove Trump's name from the ballot. Trump can't win anyway. So now it's begun. So maybe Trump's name doesn't get removed from the ballot. They are certainly trying to do it. They, as in the anti-Trump faction, the never-Trumpers, Democrats, neolibs, etc. They're trying to put the dude in prison. They just scheduled his trial date for the day before Super Tuesday. At this point, anybody who says they would not, the door's there, okay? We had one of our members say they would not bring back lockdowns that go too far and that we're probably clickbaiting and fear-mongering. And now where are we? Yeah, it's been a week and we've already got vax mandates at universities being reinforced is a better way to put it. They've always been there. They never got rid of them. We have new mask mandates emerging and Joe Biden calling for a new vaccine to be recommended, which likely maybe could result in private businesses saying, well, as per the White House, CDC, and WHO recommendation, we will require them for our private business. And so this idea, like, it's not going to happen. They can't get away with it. Like, well, here we are. Schools are closing. Mask mandates are already reinstated at hospitals and schools. Newspapers are calling for more. Stop saying it can't happen because it literally just keeps happening. That's all that happens is it keeps happening. There you go. So where do we end up? It is very likely, in my opinion, you will see a unilateral decree to remove Trump's name from the ballot somewhere. And then it all comes crashing down. Don't say it can't happen. I'm not interested in the optimism bias. It is now normalcy bias to assume this will happen. The longest time. Many people suffered from what's called optimism bias and normalcy bias. Optimism bias is a bias which affects people. They think the bad thing can't happen. No, bad thing can't. Civil war can't happen, bad thing can't happen. Yes, go look up the first Battle of Bull Run, the Battle of Manassas, where the Civil War officially, you can say Sumter was the beginning. No one really died except for a guy who accidentally, blew himself up or something like that. Nobody thought there was going to be a real conflict. So they were picnicking, as the story goes. Optimism bias. And we've all suffered from that for a long time. Maybe people have been disabused of this notion after seeing all of this, but we still have normalcy bias. People who keep saying, it won't happen. It won't happen. It's never happened. It won't happen. And then it happens. And I'm just like, dude, at a certain point, it is normal to assume this will escalate. Will they indict Trump? No, that can't happen. It's never happened before. Then they indicted him. Okay, well, that's going to be the extent of it. I can't imagine. And they indicted him again and again and again. And people just keep saying, it won't happen. And I'm like, bro, I'd like you to go back in time and track all of the things that you kept saying would not happen, and look where we are, right? Here's my point about Rachel Maddow. I think it's stupid for her to say that Donald Trump will be president for life. But that's why I said early on, she's correct. The view of Trump supporters is either Trump wins or he goes to prison. Now, I think the way she sees the world is fairly broken, but she makes an interesting point, a mirror image to who we are and what we represent. In her mind, Donald Trump is a psychotic Hitlerian despot who is trying to take over this country through force and an insurrection. And he's and as they write for the Rap, or I'm sorry, it wasn't the Rap. I think is what she said. They're going to elect their cult leader. They genuinely believe, not all of them, but some of them, because they're very, very, let's just say, cognitively deficient, to be polite, individuals. They think that there is a Nazi rise happening in this country, and they keep regurgitating these lies. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. What matters is they believe it. That's why I say she's correct. Her view of things represents we are split. I sit before you today saying they will likely remove Trump's name from the ballot. I don't think it's a crackpot conspiracy theory on par with Rachel Maddow saying Trump will be president for life. But in their world, they view this as, and everything I'm saying about civil war and all that, as insane. But that's why I push back and say they are the ones who are insane, because I'll make it simple for you guys. They sit before you and say that Donald Trump wants to be president for life, that he's facing serious legal dilemmas and seeks to become president to absolve himself of any accountability, that he waged an insurrection and rebellion against this country, instructing his supporters to storm the Capitol and steal power. But there's no civil war happening. Come on. Either you think Donald Trump is an insurrectionist who's trying to overthrow the U.S. government, which implies civil strife leading to civil war, or you think you're the baddies trying to steal power, and then there's still civil strife leading to a civil war. What is the argument that this doesn't escalate? I'd like to hear it. Because you can certainly say, people get tired of it. They start focusing on other things. But we've been in an election cycle since 2015. It's never stopped. Not a day has gone by that we have not been in an election cycle. So here we are, entering the next phase where a year out, they are already making their moves to remove Trump under crackpot conspiracy theory ideas that Trump wants to be president for life, that he tried to wage an insurrection, or that he did and failed. That's it. Tell me I'm wrong. Fine. We live in a bifurcated country. I think they will remove Trump's name from the ballot unilaterally. I don't know the probability to which that is. I don't think it's absolute. For all those who don't quite understand because they're cognitively deficient, many of these people on the left, these liberals, live in a world of black and whites. When I say I believe that they will remove Trump's name from the ballot in some state unilaterally, what I mean to say is, to clarify for all of you who can't quite understand, is the probability lies with his name being removed. But that could be 51% for all I know. In fact, it could be 30%. And it's just that there is no greater percentage. The plurality falls with Donald Trump being removed. It's possible. There's a bunch of outcomes. His name is challenged. His name is obfuscated. They flip someone else's name, whatever. I don't know what the end result is. There are many different variables lying before us. But if you think it stops here and Democrats do not make moves to try and cheat beyond just arresting Trump, then you're incredibly naive. The idea that it stops here is stupid because every step of the way, when I've been like, wow, this thing just happened, I believe the likely outcome will be this other thing. And people have said, no, that can't happen. Then it did. I simply look at it this way. I read the news. You have a story where it's like person A steals $1,000 from this lemonade stand. And then I go, wow, the lemonade stand lost $1,000. Are they insured? They're not insured. I guess the lemonade stand's going to go out of business. Ladies and gentlemen, I think tomorrow there won't be a lemonade stand. And people go, oh, no, the lemonade stand can't go away. It's been there forever. And I'm like, but they can't pay their bills now. And then the next day it's like breaking news. Lemonade stand shuts down because they have no money. That's basically how I see what's going on. And you know what I can't predict? Maybe the uncle of the lemonade stand owner swoops in with a bailout. And I go, okay, well, I couldn't have known about that. I'm just saying based on X, the next thing that's most likely without any changes will be Y. You get street violence. The media lies about it. You get these high profile incidents. The media lies about it. And I say, well, the likely scenario then, if these things are happening, is that this thing will happen. And then sure enough, there it is. So I don't know exactly what happens. I am just telling you. If they're claiming that Trump wants to be president for life and he's an evil despot trying to avoid accountability, and he's an insurrectionist who tried to steal political power, and they're trying to put him in jail, I'd actually say it's easier to believe they unilaterally remove his name from the ballot because they've indicted him for a RICO and his lawyers. You know, in terms of what is believable 5 years ago, if I said in 2024, some Secretary of State will try and take Trump's name off the ballot or would actually do it, you'd be like, wow, that's crazy. I don't know about that. I mean, they might try. And then I said, also, Trump and his lawyers will be indicted for criminal conspiracy. Oh, that's crazy. Right? The point is, Trump being indicted is crazier to think would happen than Trump's name being off the ballot. They could say that you could remove Trump's name from the ballot for a variety of reasons. It is easier, in my view, to believe they remove Trump's name from the ballot than they indict him. But they already indicted him. If they're willing to do that, how far are they willing to go? So, my friends, we'll see. We'll see. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.